The Social Security 2100 Act could add hundreds and even thousands of dollars to many Social Security recipients' benefits. And recently, this was reintroduced into the House of Representatives by Representative John Larson. So let's talk about it in this video and where things stand today. As always, guys, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Now, this plan was actually introduced many years ago, and over time, in between this, we've seen multiple things introduced for seniors, right? We've had Bernie Sanders have some proposals. We've had President Biden have some proposals. We've even had other people like Trump saying he would want to increase benefits. Of course, none of this ever came to fruition, including even those $1,000 checks for seniors that Democrats were pushing over the last few years during that stimulus check era. Well, just 2 weeks ago, Representative John Larson from Connecticut reintroduced this bill into the floor, basically trying to push this to the forefront of the conversation. And in this video, we're going to dive into the details of what's included in this plan, where things stand today, and kind of what the likelihood is of this coming to fruition. So this is actually Representative John Larson's website, and it's titled The Social Security 2100, A Sacred Trust. Now, for 87 years, the federal government has kept the promise to all Americans that if they contribute to Social Security with each and every paycheck, they would be able to retire with dignity. President Biden has called this promise a quote-unquote sacred promise. And we all remember that on the campaign trail, President Biden made it one of his biggest campaign promises to not just protect benefits, increase revenues to make sure the trust fund stays solvent, but also increase benefits for many seniors, especially for those who are average to lower income, who don't necessarily have a robust 401k, might not have a really good pension, and might not even have any savings for retirement. Now, obviously, this has been really challenging, but with this being reintroduced, let's dive into the details of exactly what's included. Now, increases in benefits. Now, a benefit bump for current and new Social Security beneficiaries provides an increase for all beneficiaries receiving Social Security, SSDI, and dependent benefits, which would be equivalent to an average of 2% for benefits across the board. On average, those who are lower income would get more, and those who are higher income would get less, depending on how things played out. Generally, they want to make these plans progressive, so folks who are lower income get a larger bulk of the increases. And of course, the reason they want to add this extra boost is because COLA, those cost of living annual adjustments, have not been keeping up with true inflation. Now, this would add up to hundreds and even thousands of dollars in increased payment checks to seniors every single year. Of course, helping those especially who don't have 401ks, rental properties, and other things to supplement their retirement. Now, protection against inflation. This is a big one given the insane inflation we've seen over the last few years. Now, this would improve the annual COLA adjustment, the formula, to make it better reflect costs incurred by seniors through adopting what's called a CPIE. Now, essentially, this formula has dozens of variables, but really it doesn't take into account things that seniors spend a larger percentage of their income on, things like healthcare costs, medications, rent, basic needs like transportation. This new formula, CPIE, would take that into account and in theory would lead to larger COLAs every single year. So we wouldn't have this problem we've had over the last 20 years where inflation is actually much higher than these annual COLAs. Now, improved inflation protection will especially help older retirees, people of color, and widows who are more likely to rely on Social Security benefits. Basically saying that this group of people don't have a lot of savings, right? Someone who's 85 years old, they might have had a 401k, but they might have used that over the last 20 years. It also protects low-income workers. 5 million seniors currently live in poverty. Wrap your head around that. 5 million seniors. Now, no one who paid into the system over an entire lifetime should retire into poverty. The new minimum benefit would be set at 25% above the federal poverty line and would be tied to wage levels to ensure that the minimum benefit does not fall behind. Again, this is especially evident when you've seen over the last few years, incomes have gone up historically, right? We've even to the point where experts were worried about a price spiral. where wages were going up so quickly that then the costs of goods could go up even more because when people make more money, there's more demand for products. And that would cause this spiral of then, okay, now that things cost more, employees are demanding more wages again. And this just keeps spiraling up, up, and up. But with seniors having to rely on COLA increases, that is not tied to wages. That is more tied to the cost of living when it comes to various things like food, energy, transportation, and things like that. Now, it would also provide a tax cut for 23 million people on Social Security benefits, and this would especially include folks who are lower income and middle income, reducing the taxes you pay on Social Security benefits. This is another complex issue, right? Because you paid the taxes into Social Security your entire life, and then a large chunk of it is taxed again, especially if you have other forms of income, right? If you have a 401k, if you still have a part-time job, if you have rental properties, you quickly reach those income thresholds and a large majority of your benefits begin to be taxed. The 2100 Act would address this and lower taxes for millions of people on Social Security benefits. It would also improve Social Security benefits for widows and widowers. Essentially, when someone passes away in a married household, you go from getting two Social Security checks to one. This new formula would increase that check for the one person still living, not as much as it would have been with two checks, but substantially more than it currently is. It would also repeal the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset that currently reduces Social Security benefits for many public servants, including teachers, police, and firefighters. So these folks, like teachers, police, and firefighters, they essentially have a government pension, and because of that, in a perfect world, they would be receiving their pension and their entire Social Security benefit. But what ends up happening in practice is they get their full pension, but then their Social Security benefits are reduced, basically penalizing for them for this. And this act would actually address that, allowing them to get the entire payment for both, right? Helping the good folks who are our teachers, our policemen and women, and our firefighters and firewomen. Obviously, I think we could all get on board for that. Now, it ends the 5-month waiting period to receive disability benefits, so those with severe disabilities no longer have to wait. Obviously, a terrible thing for people who are disabled, then have to wait sometimes years for their case to even get looked at. Another thing they want to do to address this is put more money into the administration itself, into hiring more people so they can get to these claims more quickly. Now, it would also provide care credits towards Social Security wages to ensure caregivers are not penalized in retirement for taking time out of the workforce to care for children or other dependents. It would also extend Social Security dependent benefits for students of age 26 and for part-time students so they can continue their education. Now, increase access to Social Security dependent benefits for children who live with grandparents and other relatives. So for a lot of you out there who are retired, you take care of your grandkids, it would allow you to get an additional benefit check for taking care of your grandchild, right? Which happens in millions of households across the country. It would also require the Social Security Administration to mail annual statements to all workers showing the FICA contribution workers make and projections of their benefits in the future. The point of this is really to help current workers who are not at retirement age kind of get a good idea of what their benefit will be when they retire and really put things in perspective. Like, hey, if my benefit's only going to be $2,000 a month, my projected benefit, I have to make sure I'm putting money in my 401k. I have to make sure maybe I try and have a rental property or a part-time job, really putting things in perspective so you're not blindsided, right? Most folks, especially in previous generations, did not get a lot of financial education, right? People were living their lives day to day. They didn't really have a lot of exposure to the education when it comes to finances to make sure you're planning for 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And a lot of people believe that if the administration is required to send you this letter, that will become top of mind at a much earlier age, leading to people having higher savings, higher investments, and not having the issue that millions of seniors have today. Now, it also prevents unwarranted closures of Social Security field offices. This is another problem. A lot of field offices have been closed, leading people to have to do more of their work either on more beneficiaries to try and communicate with the administration through phone or the website. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are of retirement age aren't really as tech savvy And it ends up really hurting the whole situation for seniors when they're trying to get their benefits or decide what's best for them when they can't speak to somebody in person. It would also improve access to legal representatives for people seeking long term disability benefits. Now, even just as important, potentially even more important, is strengthening the trust fund, right? Because we know currently it's expected that the trust fund will be depleted within the next 10 years or so. And at that point, unless something is done, benefits could get cut across the board by about 20% for people who are already retired, right? Now, John Larson says that having millionaires and billionaires pay the same rate as everyone else could potentially help shore this up. Now, presently, payroll taxes are not collected on individuals making above about $160,000 per year. This legislation would apply the payroll tax to wages above $400,000, creating a little bit of a donut hole between $160,000 and $400,000 you wouldn't pay into the payroll tax, but above $400,000 you would. The reason there's that donut hole is two reasons. One, President Biden promised to not increase taxes on any household making less than $400,000 per year. So President Biden really cannot back any proposal that basically breaks that promise, right? That's why that 400,000 number is in place. Secondly, every year the amount of people paying into Social Security goes up because that annual income threshold is increased, right? A couple of years ago, anything above 130,000 didn't pay into the taxes, then 140, then 147, then 160. It's going up every year with inflation. So even if they set it at 400,000 over the next few years, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe longer, but you get the point. People making 400,000 would pay into it, and then even below that, they would pay into it as well. That donut hole would essentially be closed. Now, it also extends the solvency of Social Security. This bill makes a significant contribution towards the program's solvency, making up more than half the shortfall in the Social Security Trust Fund and extending the date at which benefits would be cut by 20% by 9 or more years from 2035 to 2044. Now, this is a massive plan, and recently Representative John Larson went on the House floor pushing for this once again. Now, let's take a look and see what he said. But first, I want to put things in perspective, guys. In order for massive changes to happen in Social Security benefits, it's really going to have to go through Congress. And what that means is it's going to have to go through the House of Representatives, get a majority vote there. Then it's going to have to go to the Senate, get a majority vote there as well. And then the president would have to sign it into law. And, some people have speculated, maybe President Biden and Democrats could do this through a budget reconciliation package like they did with previous stimulus packages. Maybe President Biden could do this through executive action. But the problem is, if that were to happen, they would probably end up in the Supreme Court, just like we're currently seeing with the student loan forgiveness bill that President Biden put into law, right? That there's a good chance that student loan forgiveness is going to get rejected at the Supreme Court, and essentially the same thing would happen most likely with Social Security benefits. Because of this, it really has to go through both chambers, right? And the problem with that is, to be honest with you, we know Republicans, not to pick sides here politically, but they really don't want to increase benefits to begin with. And even Democrats, even though they push to change Social Security benefits, no one really wants to tackle that problem until the absolute last minute here, right? And the reason for that is because it's a controversial topic, right? Now, even though on this channel we support increasing benefits, we support making sure people have a very strong retirement, it can be controversial, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who don't want to have their taxes increased, right? There's a lot of people out there, surprisingly, that don't even want Social Security benefits to exist. So if Democrats really push this issue to the forefront, like anything else in politics, you're going to tick off, a good portion of the other country. And with the 2024 election coming up, they really try and thread that needle where they advocate for increasing Social Security benefits, but at the same time, they keep kicking the can down the road, right? So although this plan, the Social Security 2100 Act, is a really good plan and would help millions of seniors here in this country, most likely what's going to happen is we will probably see Social Security be a massive issue in this 2024 election, but then we're going to be left thinking, okay, Is anything going to happen? Because it was a big issue in the 2020 election as well, and nothing actually came to fruition, right? But with that said, it's a good plan. It would increase benefits by hundreds and even thousands of dollars each year for millions of seniors in this country. But, the road to getting this done is very, very difficult, right? But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments, and let's take a look and see what Representative John Larson had to say. Him, along with AOC, have really been pushing for this plan. Let me know your thoughts on what he says in the comments below.
Are calling a poly-crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to address the chamber for 5 minutes and talk about what political scientists are calling a poly-crisis. A poly-crisis is a multiple events that have happened globally that have an enormous impact not only on the world but here. I'm going to focus on just 3 of them right now. The pandemic that we're currently going through, Mr. Speaker, which has been extraordinary, as well as the supply chain issues that have happened. A global pandemic creating global supply chain issues, which led to ensuing global inflation. And in the midst of that, the Ukraine war, which has become a global war, again impacting supply chain and other issues. Who in the United States of America has this impacted the most? In our country, this pandemic has impacted the elderly. Of the 1.2 million people who have passed away, over 850,000 are over the age of 65. With regard to inflation, the group that is hurt most by inflation are people on fixed incomes, and that would be the close to 70 million Social Security recipients here in this nation. We have a crisis in this country, a pension crisis, and a crisis that Congress has neglected for more than 52 years. 1971 was the last time that Congress did anything to enhance Social Security benefits. A gallon of milk was 72 cents at that time. A lot has changed since 1971, but what hasn't changed is Congress's recalcitrance to address the needs of our seniors. Social Security is the #1 anti-poverty program for seniors and the #1 anti-poverty program for children. And yet, there are 5 million Americans currently who get below poverty level checks from the federal government, having paid all of their lives into a system. And the only reason that's so is because Congress hasn't acted. It's long overdue for Congress to act. We have legislation that we'll be introducing in the Ways and Means Committee that will enhance Social Security, across the board increases for everyone, lift people out of poverty, provide every single district with economic recovery. Why? Because on average, there's 145,000 people per congressional district who are on Social Security. And that money is spent right back in that congressional district. People are not buying back stock options with their Social Security checks. They're spending it at the grocery store. They're spending it on rent. They're spending it on prescription drugs. That's what's needed. It's long overdue for Congress to act. It's not simply a question of protecting or saving Social Security. It's doing something to end this crisis in the midst of the worst pandemic, in the midst of inflation, in the midst of a supply chain issue, to make sure that our elderly and our people are being protected. And with that, Mr.
Okay, guys, let me know your thoughts on what John Larson had to say. Let me know your thoughts on the Social Security 2100 Act and whether or not you think it's a good idea. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate your support. If you like my channel, the best thing you can do is click on the videos when you see them on YouTube and watch all the way to the end, because that tells YouTube that you like my content, and then YouTube is more likely to promote my content to new people. So guys, thank you so much. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you on the next video.